68 in St. Peter's, 70 downtown at the Arch. I'm Megan Lynch, KMOX News.
Sponsored by Gloria Lou with your home sold guaranteed realty 314-325-6888.
Need to sell your home and you want the most money? The name to remember is Gloria Lou. Yes, Gloria Lou with your home sold guaranteed realty at 314-325-6888 and start packing.
This is the Gashouse Gang on 104.1 FM KMOX. Sponsored by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin comfort dealer. And by Anderson Hospital, a Newsweek World's Best Hospital. Now, the Gashouse Gang on KMOX.
Hey, Gatter and Bernie Miklasz with you for the Gashouse Gang this afternoon on KMOX. The Gashouse Gang is sponsored by Siteman Cancer Center, national leaders in cancer, and by Anderson Hospital. Bernie, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm good, and great to work with you again, Nate. Everything's fine. Looking forward to some more Cardinals baseball over the weekend with the Giants in town, the Hall of Fame induction, the 1985 team coming back, and then, of course, you got Kansas and Mizzou playing football, renewing their border war rivalry. So, yeah, if you're a sports fan in this state, it's a great time.
Yeah, busy weekend coming up. That is certainly true. The Cardinals coming off a 5-1 win over the A's last night. You can be with us here on 104.1 FM KMOX. You can stream us on the free Odyssey app. You can also be part of the conversation streaming with us on YouTube and on our X and Facebook pages. You can leave comments, and we will address the ones, at least those appropriate for air, when we have our opportunities. Bernie, let's start with last night and kind of the impressions from what was a pretty good Cardinals victory.
I always look at these games a different way, I with one eye on the current, but also one eye very much on the future. I look at performances, and I'm thinking more about 2026 than the actual performance in real time. So in that context, I was really excited by watching Matthew Liberatore pitch last night. And I thought his start in Cincinnati last weekend was really good too. But I thought he was excellent last night, and he showed the dominance that he has in him. And it's been a challenging year for him because, he has never had to go wire to wire as a major league starting pitcher. And I think there was some fatigue that, diminished his velo, diminished his swing and miss stuff for a while. But I love the fact that he kind of battled through that, got through that. And now we're seeing him throw high velo, him throwing the ball past hitters again. And I think the one thing, there's so much uncertainty about this rotation going forward. But I feel really good about Matthew Liberatore being part of it in 2026.
Yeah, he'll be 26 years old next year. He'll turn 26 in November of this year. And to that point, he's now at 136 and 2/3 innings, so nearly certain to get past 150, maybe finish somewhere in that neighborhood of 160 or so innings, depending on how deep he goes in the remaining starts that he has. But you're right, there were real struggles there for a little while, and we were talking a lot about him hitting that wall and just not having this experience of pitching an entire season anywhere close to this number of innings. In fact, he's going to roughly end up around the number of career major league innings he had total coming into this year. He's going to roughly match that number this season, probably come up a little bit short of that number. And he has steadied off. And even if his ERA, right now he's at a 4.15. I think if he finishes somewhere around that number, you have to consider that a success because of the tolerance that will have built up in his arm, the experience, mental and physical, that this will give him going forward, because he figures to be a key piece to the Cardinals rotation for at least the next several years. And
he's got the potential and the talent. And I'm not declaring that he will actually reach the level where you say, that's a really good number 2 starter, but he certainly has the potential to be that. And what I also love about him are the intangibles, because he's a really smart guy. He studies, he scouts, he's very self-aware of his own weaknesses, and that sets about on a course to correct them. And he is ultra competitive. He really gets after it. See, those are the type of guys, and he's got good stuff. Those are the type of guys that you want to see more of in that St. Louis rotation, and I think he represents kind of what they're aspiring to, if he can put it all together in a way that lasts.
And it's underrated in some ways, I think, the pressure that comes with being a young player the way he was, coming up to the majors, having been part of maybe not a blockbuster trade, but just being a name that people are more familiar with because he was part of a trade that included a major league player. I think the average fan, a lot of times when a guy gets called up, unless it's like a top prospect or top 2 or 3 prospect in the organization, there's not a tremendous amount of buzz. I don't think there's a lot of difference in terms of the anticipation around like the number 7 prospect in the organization getting called up and the number 28 prospect in the organization getting called up, unless you've been part of a trade that included a major leaguer and got your name in the paper and got your name talked about while still in the minors, because just not a lot of guys get that treatment. And that's probably not easy either, that he had to come in with a little bit more of a spotlight and maybe slightly higher expectations and work his way through that. To your point about his mental strength, it's easy for guys who are smart like that to be overthinkers, and he's been able to combine his intelligence and his preparation with tuning out that noise to the degree he needs to be successful.
Yeah, because, he's a reliever, and, he'd never been a reliever before, so all of a sudden it's a whole different mindset, and he's like, well, okay, I'm good with that. I'll get a feel for it. I'll develop that reliever's mentality. I'll know kind of how to attack hitters. You got to be more aggressive when you're a reliever. You got to rely on your 2 best pitches. And so he very quickly, assimilated to a reliever's mentality, and he turned into a very good reliever. And now he had to kind of start over and get into the starter mindset, and he's done that very, very well. And listen, I felt sorry for him in this regard. He didn't make the trade. He didn't trade himself for Randy Arozarena, and the fact that Arozarena was so good instantly and just brilliant for the Tampa Bay Rays in 2020. And was the what was he, the MVP of the ALCS and all this other, that really worked against Liberatore because people used him as kind of a wedge to criticize the front office. And, look, who is this guy you got for Arozarena? Oh boy, great trade, that kind of stuff. Right. And it really wasn't fair to Liberatore. I always believed that, he was so young when they got him. I never once thought, you know what, I don't think this guy's is going to get it done. I always felt good about his chances. I mean, I couldn't guarantee it, but I just knew there was a lot there. So I'm glad that that's been able to come to the surface starting last year, especially then carrying over to this year. I think Cardinals fans feel better about him and maybe even a little better about the trade.
To that point, and we're going to get, as Bernie mentioned, to talking about Missouri and Kansas football and the border war later on in the show. We're also going to talk about the Cardinals Hall of Fame induction that's coming up on Saturday at Busch Stadium. But while we're talking about the young guys and the future of this rotation, let's touch on Michael McGrevy as well, who's going to start tomorrow night for the Cardinals in the opener of that series back home against San Francisco. He was a guy who was talked about too, sort of in a different way. But again, you're speaking about how players can unwittingly and through no fault or credit of their own, just by circumstance, become sort of wedges that people use to, or weapons that people use to attack the front office. And Michael McGrevy certainly was in that category. Probably at times he didn't mind it because he probably shared some of those sentiments about why am I not getting my chance in the major leagues. But he has, not necessarily with perfect success all the time, but he has seized his opportunity, right? 2 quality starts in his last 3. He's been getting pretty deep into games, pitched well in Cincinnati, just the 1 run over 6 innings his last start. Certainly, he's cemented himself as part of the Cardinals' plans. He, too, still young, going to be just turned 25 years old a couple of months ago. So Liberatore will be 26 all of next year. McGrevy will be 25 for about half of it, 26 for the back half. Those are 2 good building blocks, even if, as you say, they are number 3 and 4 starters over the long term rather than 2 and 3. They're cheap, they're controllable, and they allow the Cardinals to focus a little more of their energy on the top end of the rotation rather than having to build the entire thing.
Yeah, and you touched on something important, which is like where they slot. But let's just keep it to McGrevy now, where he slots in this rotation. And when people like me and others who were big fans of McGrevy because we saw the way he handled himself last year, remarkably poised and mature for a rookie making his major league debut. He looked like he'd been there for a long time. I mean, there was nothing about him that projected anxiety, nervousness, fear, lack of confidence. You could just tell, pardon the cliche, you could just tell that this guy had a lot of bulldog in him and nothing was going to faze him. If he has a bad inning, he immediately regroups and gets after it again. But people were, I was hearing like, you guys are all going overboard over this guy. He's not what you need for a number one starter. He's not. Whoa, 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 whoa. No one said he's a number one starter. But my thing is, if Chaim Bloom does things right and he does fill in the front end of the rotation, it might be with a couple of homegrown guys like Liam Doyle and Quinn Matthews. If you have Michael McGrevy as your fifth starter, you got a heck of a rotation. So no one was ever saying that he was going to be, the next Chris Carpenter or something, But where he fits into this rotation going forward, good spot for him back into the rotation.
Yeah, it's a good point. I wonder if Cardinals fans are just a little bit scarred from the fact that there's been so much bringing in sort of middling kind of guys in the rotation, right? That how long have Cardinals fans been saying we need an ace or at least a top two kind of guy, and they've instead gotten free agent signings like Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson. Not that there's anything wrong with those guys, just like there's not anything wrong with Michael McGrevy, but it creates this back and forth where, we might say, hey, Michael McGreevy's a pretty good pitcher. He's going to be good for the Cardinals for a while. This is a nice starter they've developed out of their system. And you immediately hear back, well, he's not a number one, and I don't know if he's even a number two. Well, number one and number two can only pitch every 5 games. Somebody else got to pitch the other games.
What you want is to have a deep rotation. And the one thing that I continue to try to emphasize is that, we can all quibble about how good McGrevy is long-term, and you could say the same thing about Libator, because they obviously still have a lot to prove. But I think people that get all caught up in that and want to just like spend their time obsessing over labels, whether a guy's a number 2 or a number 3 or whatever, they're actually missing a much bigger and more important picture, which is McGrevy. I would even include Libator, even though they traded for him, but he fully developed in the minor leagues and they drafted him for the future. You got McGrevy, who's a homegrown guy. Libator was raised in their farm system. You've got Liam Doyle on the way. You've got Quinn Matthews on the way. All of a sudden, and there's some more behind that, all of a sudden, the Cardinals, instead of having to hustle out and scramble every offseason to find stopgap starting pitchers, because they had ceased to be that organization that developed starting pitching, where they used to develop piles and piles of starting pitchers. And all of a sudden that ended. And so it became this constant, what do we do now? Oh, let's go get this guy on a 1-year contract. Oh, wait a minute. We don't have anything coming up through the system that can go in the rotation. So we better extend Miles Michaelis's contract. So people that are quibbling over where a guy fits in the rotation, you're missing a really important development. The starting pitching grown internally is starting to get to St. Louis again. Yes. And to me, that's pretty exciting.
Yes. And just the way it simplifies the task at hand for the front office for Chaim Bloom and allows him, because he's going to have a complicated offseason. Any way that it can be simplified is certainly going to pay dividends, you would think, for the Cardinals, maybe as soon as 2026. And obviously going forward as he tries to build or rebuild a nucleus of a team that can contend in the coming years. When we get back, let's talk a little bit about that Cardinals Hall of Fame induction happening on Saturday at Busch Stadium when the Cardinals take on the Giants. That's coming up next. Gashouse Gang on KMOX.
You're listening to Leaf Filter Radio, and the guru of gutter protection himself, Chris Coonahan, is here to take your most pressing leaf-related questions.
Hey, everybody. Chris here. I understand we have Ron on the line. Ron, where are you calling from?
Uh-oh. Ron, are you calling from a ladder?
Well, I was. I wanted to ask Chris what I need to do to get my gutters ready to have leaf filter installed.
Oh, Ron, you don't have to do anything. A Leaf Filter Trusted Pro will come out and clean out your gutters, realign and seal your gutters, and install Leaf Filter, America's #1 gutter protection system.
So I didn't need to get on this ladder?
Ron, Leaf Filter Trusted Pros are in your neighborhood and ready to help. Just visit leaffilter.com/deal to schedule your free gutter inspection and get up to 30% off.
Thank goodness. What was that site?
That's leaffilter.com/deal for your free gutter inspection today. See representative for warranty details. Promotion is 20% off plus a 10% senior or military discount. One discount per household.
It's Tom Ackerman, Genesis of St. Charles, the #1 Genesis dealer in the state of Missouri for 2025. Every purchase comes with 3 years of complimentary Genesis service valet. Must be within 125 miles. That means complimentary pickup and delivery plus a loaner vehicle at no additional cost. They make it so easy for you. Schedule it all easily online with Genesis of St. Charles at genesisofstcharles.com. Go visit them. You can buy online and let them deliver for you, or you can go see them at 5601 Veterans Memorial Parkway, luxury service at a state-of-the-art facility that's in St. Peters off Mid-Rivers Mall Drive and I-70. Missouri's first and only standalone Genesis dealership is Genesis of St. Charles, online at genesisofstcharles.com.
Looking for a place to call home without all the maintenance? Check out the Towns of Linneman Park, new townhomes by Lombardo, located in St. Peters. These new construction townhomes are located on the south side of 36494, east of Harvester Road, and offer floor plans featuring 2 to 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, a loft, and 2-car attached garages. Community amenities include a clubhouse, pool, pickleball courts, dog park, and walking trails. Tour our newly decorated display and fall in love with your new townhome. Visit lombardohomes.com for more information.
Rhino Shield is far superior to even the best traditional exterior house paint. Rhino Shield is 8 to 10 times thicker than paint and comes with a 25-year transferable warranty. Rhino Shield is the only ceramic coating company that has been chosen by Disney, This Old House, and 3 times on HGTV's Curb Appeal, where every episode is concentrated on unpainted brick, bonds and seals to stucco, wood, hardy, block, color lock, masonite, and more. No better product for those steel aluminum-sided homes that have become, chalky and tired looking. We coat sloped and flat roofs to extend their lives too. After 15 years, we've got a great reputation and a superior product. As long as it's affordable, why wouldn't you do it? Before you make the costly mistake of painting with traditional paint, you'd be best served to call Rhino Shield today. We are the experts and our evaluations are free. 877-25-RHINO or 877-25rhino.com. Tell them, ladies.
No paint, don't Rhino. Go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
Hey, it's Matt Pauley for i3 Broadband, the internet provider in the Pauley household. I think you'd love it if you had them as well. We've got the 2 gig package at our home, 2 gig upload, 2 gig download mirrored, and we're spending less money than we did with the cable company for lesser service. Plus, right now, they've got savings over $400 beyond their already low standard pricing. You got questions? They've got answers. Call 877-976-0711, and they've got people there who can answer all your questions, or head to their website, i3broadband.com.
You asked, we delivered. KMOX, now on FM. Crystal clear sound at 104.1 FM. Now back to the Gashouse Gang, sponsored by Saliga Heating and Cooling and by Anderson Hospital on 104.1 FM. KMOX.
Nate Gatter, Bernie Miklasz back with you. Gashouse Gang continues, and we're talking about the Cardinals Hall of Fame, the 11th induction ceremony since the team dedicated the Cardinals Hall of Fame in 2014 will take place on Saturday when the Cardinals take on the San Francisco Giants. The 3-man class in 2025 is former Cardinals shortstop Edgar Renteria, former pitcher Al Hrabosky, and former Cardinals general manager Walt Jocketty. Bernie, we're going to talk about all 3 of those names, but I think as I've been thinking about this weekend, I think the name that in some ways stood out to me the most, and I'm going to tell you why, is Edgar Renteria, just because I think he is probably the most underrated of the 3, or to the casual Cardinals fan, especially the younger generation casual Cardinals fan, might have caught them a little bit off guard that he doesn't get talked about in some of the same ways that some other Cardinals players from his generation do. But not only was he a 3-time All-Star with St. Louis, he's the only player in the history of the organization, not the only shortstop, the only Cardinal ever to win Silver Slugger and Gold Glove awards in the same season twice. And that tells you, look, shortstop, especially at that time, shortstops were not slugging in the way that maybe they have at other times since then. But to be the Silver Slugger and the Gold Glove winner at your position in any season puts you in rarefied air. To do it twice, he's literally the only one in that place in the entire history of the Cardinals.
Yeah, I spent, I don't know how many years it was where Renteria has been on the ballot, but I spent a lot of time making a push for him in the Cardinals Red Ribbon Committee, because to me, his Hall of Fame case was a slam dunk. And it frustrated me as someone who greatly admired him and his body of work in St. Louis that it was taking him a while to get in. And I thought, well, I can understand it. You know, Ozzie Smith's final year was 1996, and he went out on top. He was really good that year. Walt Jocketty got Edgar Renteria before the 1999 season. That's pretty close to when Ozzie departed. So it's pretty tough to be the guy that, in a way, follows Ozzie Smith at shortstop in St. Louis. But listen, you mentioned the fact that he's the only shortstop in franchise history to win both the Gold Glove and Silver Slugger 2 consecutive seasons, 2002, 2003. He also had, and I did the research on this, so I asked people to take my word on it. In 2003, he had the best offensive season by a major league shortstop during the expansion era. He hit 330. He slugged 480. His OPS plus was 30% above league average. 13 home runs, 100 RBIs, 34 steals. Got on base at nearly a 400 clip. That was the best offensive season by a shortstop from like 1961 up until 2003. And if you look at where he ranks in franchise history, it's pretty amazing. First of all, he was the first Cardinal shortstop to ever drive in 100 runs in a season. And he also he was about six hits shy of matching Honus Wagner as the only NL shortstops that get 200 hits and 100 RBIs in a season. And if you look at where he ranks in franchise history among shortstops, he's right up there. He's right up there in like the top 3. I mean, in the history of the franchise. And the only reason I'm not reading any numbers to back that up is because I've already used a lot of numbers and I don't want to keep throwing numbers at people, but just an exceptional player. Also, the starting shortstop on 4 great teams, 2000, 2001, 2002, and 2004. And during that time, only Derek Jeter played in more postseason games. I am so happy Edgar Renteria is in, and I'm so happy that the fans voted for him, and I thank them for voting for him because he really, really was a lot better, to use your term, underrated. He is very underrated. I'm not sure why, but he had a hell of a career when he was in St. Louis.
Let's talk about Walt Jocketty as well, because obviously, that's a guy with whom you have a lot of familiarity. And I think his legacy has been complicated in some ways by everything that's happened since. He, on the one hand, maybe was underrated in the early days of the John Mozeliak era for how much he did to lay the groundwork. Now, maybe as the fan base has gotten so comfortable blaming anything and everything on John Mozeliak, he has been kind of lionized in a nostalgic way. When you think about Walt Jocketty and his legacy in St. Louis, what comes to your mind?
Oh, man, I don't have enough time because when I did a couple of pieces on him after he passed, I spent a lot of time to do it right. And I went and cataloged all the moves he made and all the people that he brought in. Let's start with Tony La Russa and Dave Duncan, first of all. He was also the head of the baseball operation when they drafted Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina. I mean, he made trades for he brought in Chris Carpenter, took a flyer on him after the Blue Jays released him. He traded for Scott Rowland and Jim Edmonds and Edgar Renteria. He traded for McGuire. He signed Jason Isringhausen, the all-time leader in saves. When they didn't have a shortstop there for a while after Renteria left, he signed David Eckstein, who became a World Series MVP. I mean, I could just go on and on and on and on. He also had this way, because he knew what Dave Duncan could do with pitchers. He would go out and get a Jeff Weaver, who becomes a huge, huge piece of the 2006 postseason run. In fact, was the winning pitcher and pitched well in the game that clinched it over the Detroit Tigers, because he knew Dave Duncan could turn him around. He did the same thing with Jeff Suppan. Those guys were all over the place. He made the trade for Adam Wainwright. He had rookies of the year. He drafted rookies of the year. It's a breathtakingly comprehensive and deeply talented list of moves. I mean, I don't know that anybody's done it better, really. I really don't. Unbelievable legacy, Walt Jocketty.
Edgar Renteria, Walt Jocketty, and Al Hrabosky all going into the Cardinals Hall of Fame Ballpark Village induction ceremony during Hall of Fame weekend this Saturday, day after tomorrow. When we come back, we'll be talking about the 1926 season. We'll visit with Thomas Wolfe, the author of a book called Baseball in the Roaring '20s, the Yankees, the Cardinals, and the captivating 1926 season. That's coming up next on KMOX.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson. Paid for by Action Matters. Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textingterms.us. Texting enrolls you for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop to opt out.
Attention parents of children who have used the gaming platform known as Roblox. If your child was a victim of sexual abuse or harm of any kind while using the Roblox platform, you may be entitled to compensation. Roblox is facing multiple high-profile lawsuits, including an ongoing class action, alleging it failed to protect users from foreseeable dangers that led to the grooming, exploitation, and sexual abuse of minors on the platform. Claims allege Roblox turned a blind eye to predators, unsafe games, and deceptive monetization practices that targeted children. Victims were contacted through in-game chats and coerced into private conversations on third-party apps. If you believe your child may have been a victim of grooming, sexual abuse, or harm of any kind while using the Roblox platform, you may be entitled to a cash settlement. Text our helpline now to find out if you have a viable compensation claim against Roblox. Text GONE to 32 32 32. That's GONE to 32 32 32. GONE to 32 32 32.
Weather sponsored by Woodlands of Arnold Senior Living. It's 75 degrees today and sunny, 62 of a low this evening. Tomorrow, high of 72, some showers possible in the afternoon. That's the weather sponsored by Woodlands of Arnold Senior Living on KMOX.
The Woodlands of Arnold campus offers skilled rehab, a beautiful assisted living community, and a secure memory care to keep your loved ones safe. Check us out at rspseniorliving.com. That's rspseniorliving.com.
Hey guys, Glover here with my friends at Michael's Baths. Your bathroom might be small, but fixing it can feel huge. Cracked tiles, outdated fixtures, and that tub that's seen better days. Well, at Michael's Baths, we're going to get you the bathroom of your dreams at a price that you can afford. Mike usually comes in 30 to 50% less than the national companies. He is local. He is family owned and operated. He's done this for 30 years, and he is a great guy. 636-775-0800. 636-775-0800 to michaelsbaths.com.
We can get more sleep, we can get more sun, and we can get more exercise, but the one thing we can't get more of is time. It's time to eliminate the one phrase that could be holding you back from reaching your retirement goals. I'll take care of it tomorrow. It's time to pick up the phone and make the call to Gary Goldberg and the team at Financial and Tax Strategies. 314-991-9005 or online at checkwithgary.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Centaurus Financial, Inc., an FFC registered investment advisor. Insurance and annuities offered through Gary Goldberg, NPN number 918615.
Hey, it's Tom Ackerman. Football is back, thank goodness. And Underdog is the best place to select entries and win money all season long. You can play right now in Missouri, and playing on Underdog is easy. Just choose whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like touchdowns, receiving yards, interceptions, and more during football season. There is nothing better. Download the app today and sign up with promo code TOM. That's really important. Promo code TOM to score $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5. That's promo code TOM. Millions of fans have already won billions making plays on Underdog. Will you be next? Underdog, make plays, win money. Must be 18 plus and present in Missouri. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms_DFS_.html for details. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org.
An important message from S&L Coins. S&L Coins pays top dollar for your gold and silver coins, old currency, gold-filled jewelry, scrap gold and silver, silver plating, gold and silver bullion. Get a quote with a call to S&L at 544-3600. S&L Coins, 544-3600. Or visit S&L Coins at 9300 Gravois, just east of McKenzie. Open 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, 9 to 4 Saturday. Before you sell, call S&L, 544-3600.
We all have someone we love, like the favorite lyric in our favorite song. You can't imagine life without them. So tell them today, I love you. Get screened. It could help save their life. Visit cancer.org/getscreened to learn more.
Cards manager Ollie Marble joins the Gashouse Gang every Tuesday at noon. Sponsored by Siteman Cancer Center on the voice of the Cardinals, 104.1 FM, KMOX. Now back to the Gashouse Gang, sponsored by Saliga Heating and Cooling and by Anderson Hospital on 104.1 FM, KMOX.
Gashouse Gang continues on a beautiful Thursday afternoon in September in St. Louis. Nate Gatter, Bernie Miklasz back with you, and we are joined now by Thomas Wolfe, the author of a new book called Baseball in the Roaring '20s, the Yankees, the Cardinals, and the captivating 1926 season. Thomas, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. I'm looking forward to talking to you.
Well, this is a good place to talk about the Cardinals from almost 100 years ago now in the season of 1926. Let's start by setting the stage for people who maybe are not experts on baseball in the 20s the way that you are. What provided the impetus for you to write this book? What made you say 1926 is worth however many years you had to pour into this? And what should they know about it going in before they buy the book?
Well, the idea for me to write the book in about 1926 came when I was working on a book about 1932. The 1932 World Series featured the Yankees and the Cubs, but the Cubs manager that year was Rogers Hornsby. So Hornsby didn't make it to the World Series in 32. He got fired by his team in the middle of a pennant race. But I got really interested in the relationship between Ruth and Hornsby, and that sort of set me back to look at baseball in the 20s. And 1926 is when the careers of Rogers Hornsby, the great Cardinal player and manager, collided with the career of Babe Ruth. So I looked back to 1925 just to kind of set up why I picked 26. And 25 was the worst year of Ruth's career. He was on a downturn, but it was one of the best years of Hornsby's. Hornsby hit 403 and became manager halfway through the season. So I had this great setup with these two ball players who were going to compete in the 26 World Series. And, writing about the 1920s was a thrill anyway, but I was really captivated by the Cardinals-Yankees competition and the fact that this was the first pennant and World Series for the Cardinals.
Thomas, Bernie Miklasz here. How are you, sir? Thanks for being on with us. I like the premise of your book. I was reading through it, but just the way you set it up, because the Roaring '20s, the 1920s were wild. There was so much going on, larger than life personalities, huge changes in the culture, different forms of entertainment coming online, new stars in every field of entertainment. And, I've heard baseball historians make comments along the lines of, one thing about baseball, it's always kind of reflected the national soul at any given time, or the national trends at any given time. And it looks like 1926 absolutely fits that premise.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's one of the things that drew me to the project, was that I could write about not only 1926 baseball-wise, but what was going on in the culture. And as you point out, it was a very exuberant decade. And 1926 falls right in the middle, 7 years after the end of World War I, right in the middle of Prohibition. At the same time that speakeasies were providing alcohol for those who wanted to drink, and jazz was coming along, was a popular form of entertainment. And, for ball players who traveled, long distances on long road trips, they played only day games. So they had a lot of opportunity for nightlife. If you're coming from St. Louis, your train trip for about 3 weeks is going to go through Chicago and New York and Boston and Philly. And there's lots to do in the evenings in all of those cities in the 1920s. So it was just a great, exuberant, energetic decade. People were very positive. They were prosperous, and they were very forward-looking. No one really foresaw in 1929 in the stock market crash when the decade really changed.
We're visiting with Thomas Wolfe, who's the author of a new book, Baseball in the Roaring '20s, the Yankees, the Cardinals, and the captivating 1926 season. Thomas, could you walk us through, for those of us who don't really know how authors of this kind of book, how historians operate, what does the research process look like when you're reaching back nearly a century, in some cases over a century, in order to sort of source the information for this book and tie things together into a narrative?
Well, really, there's kind of three directions that I went in terms of the research. One was to go back and read biographies of the players who were involved in these seasons. Another was to read histories of the 1920s, so I had a good sense of what the culture was. And then I could find all the information I needed game by game online in box scores. So I could study the season basically game by game as the season progressed. And especially for the Cardinals season, because they were in a very tight pennant race and didn't really emerge as the National League champion until the last couple of weeks of the season when they overtook the Cincinnati Reds. So it's just a matter of immersing myself in the lives of the players and in the culture and what historians had written about it.
It was really a classic World Series. It's one of those things that makes me wish I could go back in a time machine and watch the Grover Pete Alexander in Game 7, the series ending with Babe Ruth trying to steal a base and getting thrown out. I mean, there was all kinds of stuff going on. And the Cardinals, and tell us about this. The Cardinals were really up against it. I mean, they were down. What were they down? 3-2? Right. Yeah, going back to New York. So they had to win 2 games at Yankee Stadium, which they did. But tell us why you think that Cardinals team was so special, and what when we talk about their qualities. Sorry, I'm stammering here. When we talk about their qualities, which qualities particularly shine through in that 26 World Series?
Well, they were a very resilient team. They were fairly young, actually. The infield, not counting Hornsby, I think averaged 24 years. So, I mean, they were a young team, but they were resilient all year long, led by Hornsby. And then there were 2 very key acquisitions made by the Cardinals during the season. They traded for Billy Southworth, who became the hitting star in the pennant stretch. And they traded most notably for Grover Cleveland Alexander, a 39-year-old pitcher who had won over 300 games in his career, but had been discarded by the Cubs, partly because of the fact that he suffered both from epilepsy and alcoholism. But he was an incredible addition to the Cardinals going into the World Series, and he wound up pitching and winning Games 2 and Game 6, both in Yankee Stadium, and then came in the most dramatic fashion to save Game 7. As you note, Ruth was thrown out for the last out of the game and the series by Bob O'Farrell, who was a really underrated catcher. He was the MVP of the National League in 1926. But the exploits of Grover Cleveland Alexander in the World Series are kind of legendary in baseball history. And although he didn't have a long career with the Cardinals, he's one of baseball's all-time greats and really propelled the Cardinals to that win in 1926.
Well, if you believe the legend of it, he may or may not have been extremely hungover when he went into pitch in Game 7.
That's right. He did have a reputation for drinking. He had pitched and won a complete game victory in Game 6. So he didn't expect to pitch in Game 7. The Game 7 starter for the Cardinals was Jesse Haynes, who had shut the Yankees out actually back in Game 3. So when the call came for Alexander to come out of the bullpen, some stories he was asleep. He was just kind of dozing in the bullpen. Hornsby had noticed that Jesse Haynes was struggling a little bit as a starting pitcher and had rubbed his finger raw to the point his hand was bleeding. Hornsby came in. This is in the 7th inning, bases loaded, Tony Lazzeri of the Yankees at bat. And Hornsby came in from second base and asked Haynes, "Can you still pitch?" And he said, "Well, I can't throw the knuckler anymore because my finger's wrecked, but I can throw the fastball." And Hornsby said, "I don't want you throwing any fastballs to Tony Lazzeri." And he took Haynes out, and he had all the pitchers in the bullpen. He could have picked any one pitcher to come in, but he picked Alexander, who, as you say, might have been hungover, might have been sleeping, and had pitched a full game the day before because Hornsby believed in him. And Alexander came in and pitched 2 1/3 innings of perfect relief, and really was the pitching star of that series.
Thomas Wolfe is with us, author of Baseball in the Roaring '20s, the Yankees, the Cardinals, and the captivating 1926 season. Thomas, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure. Really enjoyed talking to you.
That's Thomas Wolfe, author of the new book, Baseball in the Roaring '20s. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about Missouri and Kansas renewing the border war in football on Saturday in Columbia, maybe touch as well on some final Cardinals thoughts. Before we do that, Bernie, how about you tell us a little bit about your friends at Saliga?
It's my pleasure. The Miklasz family has been calling Saliga Heating and Cooling for about 17 years for help. And we were kind of late to this whole thing because Saliga Heating and Cooling, the same family, 4 generations of Saligas, have owned and operated this family business. It's been taking care of St. Louisans since 1927. So we found out what all these generations of St. Louisans found out before we did, how great Saliga is. This Daikin comfort dealer, the things that I'm looking for when I'm trying to make a decision about heating, cooling, any kind of service. Well, who can I trust? Who's dependable? Who's got a great reputation? When they come to your home, are you going to feel comfortable when they're in your home? And, Saliga checks all the boxes every single time. We found in our experience with Saliga Heating and Cooling that they're always going to look to find the less expensive or least expensive solution to a problem. They don't go straight to the most expensive thing that's going to make more money for them. They want your business and they want to keep you as a client. And that's why this business has remained strong since 1927 because of their integrity and their knowledge and their professionalism. So highest marks from the Miklasz family. And they also have something I want to tell you about before I go. They have the Priority Club. It is a maintenance program that will save money by extending the life of your equipment. And we learned that firsthand because they come out a couple times a year. They just make sure everything's running smoothly. Sometimes in our case, they caught a small problem. It was no big deal. They fixed it on the spot, but it didn't become a big and expensive problem. That's the point. So go to SaligaHeatingCooling.com and take a look at the Priority Club. And I think you'll like what you see, and I would highly recommend it. To find out more, go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com.
I hear from sellers all the time that they fear they have missed out on the selling market. They are so relieved to learn September, October, and November are strong selling months. With low inventory and hopefully lower interest rates, this fall will be a hot one for real estate. I'm Christina Straight, owner of Straight Realty. You may have heard me say, why pay more than 4 for years? Now it's why pay more than 2, saving you even more money. Call me 314-441-4444. And remember, why pay more than 2?
Straight Realty is a licensed broker in the state of Missouri, Kansas, and Nevada.
Cardinal Cowboy here. After a coma, a miracle, and the fight of my life, I made it back to the games wearing my signature cowboy hat and jersey. Then came the baseball pants, the replica trophy, and the smiles and joy from the young fans. That's when the Cardinal Cowboy was born. Renner Garage Door knows how to bring joy too. With top brands like Delden, Amar, and LiftMaster, and family service you can trust, get your free repair or replacement quote today. Forward and back. Giddy up!
RENNER, RENNER.
It doesn't take a lot to make a big difference.
That's why we've teamed up with Jerry Kelly Heating and Cooling to bring you 100 acts of kindness.
For the next 6 months, the Chris and Amy Show is challenging you to spread kindness in simple, meaningful ways. No big budget needed.
Write a thank you note, help a neighbor, surprise someone with a smile. It all counts.
Let's prove that kindness is contagious. Share your acts with us by using hashtag 100KindActs.
Because a little kindness goes a long way.
Hey guys, Clever here with my friend Mark Cantor at Cantor Injury Law. So as you know, I'm a lawyer, so I take this very seriously. Mark is a great attorney. He has a great team. He is from St. Louis. He is local. Call 314-628-9999 or visit CantorInjuryLaw.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be solely based on advertisements.
Your home equity could vanish almost overnight, stolen by scammers who forge a deed and transfer it out of your name. The FBI calls it house stealing, and the worst part is you may not know it until it's too late. Find out if you're already a victim now at HomeTitleLock.com. Use promo code RADIO for a 30-day free trial, a title scan, and access to a title specialist, a $250 value. Go to HomeTitleLock.com now. Promo code RADIO.
Are you having trouble hearing? Hearing loss can devastate the quality of your life. Now, there's an affordable fix for you or your loved one. Rated the best hearing aids of 2025 by Forbes Health, Audion Hearing has the highest quality hearing aids at the lowest prices, starting at just $98 a pair.
I actually like them better than my old $5,000 hearing aids.
I could not believe how my hearing and life changed.
Join over 1 million happy customers by going to audionhearing.com. That's AUDIEN hearing.com.
Now back to the Gashouse Gang, sponsored by Saliga Heating and Cooling and by Anderson Hospital on 104.1 FM KMOX.
Nate Gatter, Bernie Miklasz with you, wrapping up the Gashouse Gang on this Thursday afternoon. Dave Glover is coming up after us. The border war is back day after tomorrow. In fact, we're inside 48 hours from kickoff now. 11 a.m. kickoff on Saturday. Missouri hosting Kansas from Faurot Field at Memorial Stadium in Columbia, Missouri. Bernie, it's been a long time coming, it feels, to get this game back on the field. I think everybody is excited to see it in Columbia, and both teams feeling Missouri is a favorite, I think, by about a touchdown, but both teams will feel they have a viable opportunity in this game. It's exactly the way that you want to bring it back, rather than having one team favored by 20 points or something like that, the way it might have been had they played this game 5, 6, 7 years ago when Kansas was having their 0-9 season in 2020 or something like that. These are two teams certainly who you'd expect to have winning records at the end of the year, and two who have their eyes on at least 9-10 win type seasons.
Yeah, and the one thing I love about this matchup, other than the history, the very rich history, and it's a real rivalry. You know, college football with all of this realignment and teams hopping from conferences to conferences, and TV executives basically orchestrating moves to set up new conferences and dictate how the playoffs are going to go. The idea of like a pure rivalry, sounds crazy. There are some pure rivalries, but they're not as prominent as they used to be because of all the hopscotching. But the thing about Mizzou and Kansas, that's forever. That's forever. I mean, you're talking about a rivalry that was basically rooted in Civil War battles between the two states. And that animosity carried over to the football field when they started playing in late 1800s, where these two states and these two football programs don't like each other. And I don't think it's quite as nasty as it was in the days of, wild William Quantrill and all that, and his Raiders. But there's still a genuine dislike, which I find is charming, because when Mizzou went to the SEC, they had no rivalry. So there was I call it an arranged marriage. Well, let's see, Arkansas. Oh yeah, okay, you guys are rivals now. And it made you really miss a true rivalry, a pure rivalry, and that's what Kansas and Mizzou is. And I'm so excited for this game. One of the greatest sporting events I have ever covered, I was privileged to cover, was that incredible 2007 game between the two teams. It was one of the great. I've seen some extraordinary things. I've been blessed covering sports as long as I have. That one's on the short list. It's easily in the top 10, and I've covered incredible things. That game was absolutely riveting. Mizzou opening up a huge lead, Kansas clawing back. It goes down to the end. They sack Todd Riesling in the end zone. He comes up with a big clump of sod of Arrowhead Stadium turf on his helmet. I mean, just great stuff. And Mizzou rose to number 1 in the country because of that. They didn't hold on to it. They lost to Oklahoma next week. Anyway, I'm sorry I'm babbling. I'm just really excited by this. It's very meaningful.
As you should be. And I was so excited I moved the game time up. It actually is 2:30 on Saturday. Now I misspoke. It will not be 11. It's 2:30 p.m. Saturday is kickoff from Columbia, Missouri, and Kansas. What was at the time when the series ended in 2011, or ended for the time in 2011, it was the second most played rivalry in Division 1A, now FBS football history. They played 120 times. This will be the 121st meeting. They first played on Halloween 1831. Or 1891, I should say, a rivalry that goes back to to the 1890s. And Bo Pribula, Missouri's quarterback, said on Tuesday he had no idea. He's been learning about the whole Civil War history. He thought it was just a sports rivalry, but learned that it went well beyond that. What's interesting, Bernie, and I wonder if you have any thoughts on this, is that the two head coaches have taken very different approaches. Eli Drinkwitz said they had speakers every week throughout fall camp coming in to talk about the history of the rivalry, and beyond that, the history of Missouri and Kansas and everything that underpins the sports part of the rivalry. Lance Leipold, Kansas's coach, said the opposite. They almost tried to avoid it until this week because he didn't want to build it up too much for his players.
And I think that he tried to give his team a crash course on the history, going back to, the real border war where you had raiders from both states attacking each other, retaliating. It just went back and forth. But I think both coaches, I think Drinkwitz, because he's been embedded in Mizzou now for 6 years, I think he had more of a sense of history than Leipold, only because Leipold's relatively new. He's a great football coach. Both of these guys have done wonders with these programs. But I love the fact that Eli Drinkwitz brought in all these different speakers to talk to his team about the meaning of this rivalry, the history of the rivalry, the fiber, everything that goes into this rivalry. I mean, it's almost a spiritual thing when something goes back that far through the generations. And I think that, believe it or not, I'm probably full of it. I actually think that gives Mizzou kind of an edge. I think they are more struck by the history of this and why it's incredibly important to win. Not just because they need a win, but this in particular, this early in a season would be an incredible way to basically launch your season. And it would be deeply personal given the history of these programs.
With the few seconds that we have left, do you think Mizzou gets that win that they need?
Yeah, I did a video for STL Sports Central just before I came on. And I if I were a betting man, I would say Mizzou is going to win the game straight up. I would be nervous about the point spread, 6.5. But that home field has turned into a true SEC home stadium. And Kansas, their quarterback is really good, but last year on the road, he had more interceptions and touchdowns. His stats, everything, accuracy, effective. I think that's a tough yard. It's going to be a very tough yard for KU to come into.
Missouri and Kansas, the border war on Saturday afternoon. Thanks so much for being with us. For Bernie Miklasz, producer John Camp, Nate Gatter saying so long. Dave Glover is coming up on the other side. This has been the Gashouse Gang on KMOX.
Hey guys, it's Kevin Wheeler. Struggling with low energy, performance issues, or weight gain? A Game Day Men's